老师们好，欢迎各位老师来参加我们今天的这场报告，欢迎大家我们一定尽量满足大家，回答所有的问题，好吗？我们在等的时候呢，跟老师们出一个小小的问题啊。我们今天要讲的呢是 Seal of Biliteracy。我想我还不知道我们正式的翻译应该是什么，我们暂且把它叫为应该怎么叫？双语金印是这样。那我的问题是这样，请老师们您知道或者请您猜一猜，全美国50个州哪一个州第一个有了这个 Seal of Biliteracy？ 您猜一下好吗？哇！刘老师这么厉害！哇，这个真的是要这两位老师，哇，太棒了！那可不可以请双语金印？哇，翻译的真好，双语金印，这是纽约的翻法，对不对？真厉害，真是厉害。那刘老师、罗老师，麻烦您可不可以打字告诉我们，您怎么知道的？就是知道还是猜到的，还是怎么样？双语勋章，也不错，翻译的也好。So actually, Linda, yeah, 2 teachers got the answer immediately.
Awesome, that's good. We have experts.
How about the second state? If its first state is California, how about the second state? New York. Okay, how about the third one? Yay! 周老师、周一华老师拿到了。对，我也在想，我们这个刘健老师好像有千里眼、顺风耳，怎么都知道？是，老师们都在讲。对，我们现在好像中文还没有一个统一的固定的这个翻译。不过双语金印也好，双语勋章也好，双文凭也好，我觉得都不错，都不错。好，那现在是5点01分，我想呢，我们就开始吧。然后我相信老师们还在陆陆续续在登场。那我先借这个机会呢，给大家介绍一下我们今天的这个重量級的嘉宾。好，那so as you can see, Linda is on Zoom. Linda is a good friend of mine, and yeah. Okay. And just want to share some little secret. Number one, Linda has a Chinese name, which is Aileen. And number two, Linda has a WeChat account. Wow, that's amazing, right? And yeah, Linda was a Spanish teacher for many years. And I believe, Linda is a national board certified teacher, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. And I think he has taught junior high, high school, and college level. And also she did teacher education courses. So she's one of us. She really knows the field. And so I think we cannot find another person who really can share her expertise and insights about world language education and Seal of Biliteracy, of course. And I know Linda is very active, in Illinois and in national level, in different organizations, and advocacy has been a big part, in her career. And I think, Linda, you started to work for Seal of Biliteracy in 2018, 2018?
Well, for the Global Seal in 2018.
2018, okay, great. And so just like myself, I think a lot of teachers, we know the term Seal of Biliteracy, but I think we need to know more about it, not just the term, what this, Seal of Biliteracy is really about. So I'm going to pass, the speaker to Linda. Okay, 谢谢.
Thank you, Ying. And I want to welcome all of you to this webinar, and I want to thank Ying and Sarah and all of the team at CLASS for just this incredible webinar opportunity that they've been providing to all of you. And I want to especially thank you and just provide my personal appreciation to all of you as teachers for what you're doing with your classrooms in these very sort of difficult situations that we're facing with the COVID pandemic. And as a teacher myself, I'll always have a teacher's heart. The Seal of Biliteracy for me is all about students. And I think one of the most important things you remember as we deal with this is not the difficulty of grading and delivering online instruction, but it's remembering that your students are individuals and that their lives will go on, and their love of Chinese and their love of learning can continue because of the relationships that you create with them. Whether it's in the classroom or over a video screen, those relationships are what will really make the difference. And you do that every day when you have contacts with them. So I want to encourage you and thank you for who you are as teachers. So thank you for that. And with that, we'll learn all about the Seal of Biliteracy. So I created the sort of webinar along some questions, and this is obviously the most important question: what is the Seal of Biliteracy? And officially, it's a recognition that is awarded to certify language skills in 2 or more languages. And I wrote in 2014, after having experienced working with the state of Illinois to adopt our state Seal of Biliteracy, that I really believed as a language classroom teacher that it was a game changer for my students. It was what my students needed to not just sit in the classroom and do their best to get a grade, but to really become an active participant in the classroom language learning, to learn the language, to get as much of the language as they could, because they saw the Seal of Biliteracy as something better than a good grade. And so I wrote this article that was in Education Week as an op-ed about how the state Seal of Biliteracy was a game changer. And I believe, this is several years later, and I believe it to be even a stronger answer than I did when I wrote the article. So it is, in fact, a game changer for your school, for your classroom, but most important for students and the opportunities that they might have in the future for using the language that you teach. I like the state of Illinois' purpose in the states. This is actually in the Illinois state law for the state seal. And I think it's a very concise way to talk about what was the purpose for having a state seal of biliteracy. And there's obvious purposes like encouraging biliteracy and study languages, but there were also future purposes like helping employers identify someone that has a language skill, to give universities a way to identify students with skills, maybe for not just for applying, but for college placement, for scholarships. I think it's really important that we look at value that's placed on bilingualism. And so the value of being a foreign language teacher, you know, in this, again, with the pandemic, and there's a lot of fear about what's going to happen with jobs, the Seal of Biliteracy is a way to advocate for your job because it's part of the law in the state of Illinois and others that have a state seal that they are saying as a state government, we value foreign language instruction, or we value being bilingual. We value diversity and multiculturalism, and we did that, so we created a law, and I'm supporting that as teaching a language classroom. So I think that's really important. Why should a school offer a seal of biliteracy? Well, the very first reason why in every state that has one, you should offer your state seal of biliteracy is because for the very first time, a state or a government entity recognized the value of being bilingual. Over the course of national history, that has not been always true. And so we want to take any chance that a government says being bilingual is important and make sure we support it 100%. The second reason is because it gives us, the language learner, proof of their language skill. And a student or anyone can say, I'm bilingual. But when you have a piece of paper that validates it, it means something to the person you share it with in a much stronger way. And it's validated in almost every state because of testing. And so it's proved, and that's something that not only academia, but employers really value. And a good example of that is one of my early students that got the state seal. He had gotten it through College Board advanced placement testing. And he told his boss that at work that he had gotten a good grade on his AP test. And his boss said, well, that's nice. Well, 2 months later, when we got the state seal of biliteracy and he was going to earn it, he told his boss he was getting the state seal of biliteracy. And he said, wow, you must be really good at language. I'm going to give you a raise and you can talk to our customers in Spanish. And so all of a sudden, the same test score meant something different to an employer. And I think that's one of the values you offer your students. One of the things that's interesting is that in the United States, it is biliteracy, but one of those languages needs to be English in every state except Hawaii. Hawaii is officially a bilingual state. So in the state of Hawaii, even though part of the United States, you could have your seal of biliteracy in Hawaiian and Chinese. So why are there, as we why are there kind of different seals of biliteracy? Well, this is a question a lot of people get very confused about. So I really wanted to start this as sort of an introduction, because you hear about the seal of biliteracy, but there isn't only one seal of biliteracy. In fact, there are right now, I think 41, and actually we could probably add a couple of more because the global seal is also being used in other countries. So we have the individual state seals of biliteracy. Every state that has a state seal has its own state seal. It's different from every other state seal. And so it's approved by its either government through law or through the school code in the Department of Education. In most states, it does not include schools, but some states do. It's an award that is usually only given to high school seniors, sometimes high school juniors. And in some cases, you may earn it at some point during high school, but it's only given to the seniors when they graduate. So it's really given as an award to recognize a high school senior when they graduate, kind of like a senior scholarship night or something like that. Each state has its own policies, its own procedures, its own criteria, its own rules. In some states, schools apply. In other states, they don't. In some states, students apply. In some states, they require that schools submit data and information. In others, that's not required. In most states, the schools provide all of the recognition items. So if it's a certificate or a medal, that's something that the school provides. The state may give some digital artwork, but in states, for example, like Colorado, each district comes up with its own design and its own seal and its own like program or whatever that might look like. So each one of those are very different, and I'll show you a little bit more in a minute. The Global Seal of Biliteracy was created as a gap filler. So, for example, the private schools or university students or community-based heritage schools that didn't qualify for a state seal. Charter schools sometimes don't qualify for a state seal, but also individual learners or a student that has a language that goes to a public school and they don't teach that language. Or, for example, in my state, only about 30% of schools even participate. So they could have a state seal, but the school doesn't participate in the program, so the student is left out. And so we have a lot of students who would like to have their language recognized, but don't have a way to do that. And so that's really what the Global Seal was created for. So it is a privately funded program and it's independent of the states. the nice part about that is that we can make our own rules and we can do things much faster because we don't have to wait for all of the legislators to agree, which sometimes takes a lot of time when you work with Congress. I know because I'm in Washington, D.C. a lot for that. It's a language credential that's available to anyone. So we actually will certify students that are in middle school as soon as they meet our requirements. But we also certify teachers and adults in the business world. The criteria is the same around the world. So we last summer worked with the Department of Education in Mexico and provided global seals to students in Mexico. We're currently working with the Department of Education in Iceland. So it's the same there as it is here in the United States. Everyone must submit, we're using the same kind of tests and the same kind of criteria. And we provide the certificates and the seals for free. We don't include the cost of testing. And we do have a few items that you can purchase that, like a medal, that would be extra, but we provide all the certification and for seals for free and shipped for free. So in that way, it's like the state seal. We don't charge for the program. So, yes.
Sorry, we have two quick questions. And the first question is, seal of biliteracy is not just for public school, right?
The state seal usually is only for public school. The global seal is for anyone.
Thank you. And another question is this. As we know, we divide different languages into 4 categories, right? Spanish is category 1 language, and Chinese is a category 4 language. So some teachers have this concern. And Chinese students taking Chinese have to spend much more time to reach certain proficiency level. So how do we deal with that?
I'm going to explain that probably in about 3 slides.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's no problem. So this just is a quick map to sort of show which states have a state seal of biliteracy. The states that are blue, there are 39. And these are the states where global seal has been issued. The states that are green, global seal has been issued by middle schools, high schools, or colleges. We have a lot of universities that use the global seal. Yellow states have applications that are waiting test scores. There's also, I mentioned Mexico, and we have some other countries in the works. Just to give you a further idea about the state seals, not all states call it a state seal of biliteracy. So some states call it a certificate. For example, in my neighboring state of Indiana, it's a certificate of literacy, which is a different name. So in Texas, it's an endorsement. So it's not always a seal of biliteracy. So sometimes that's something to be aware of. If you notice the little sort of emblems, each one looks different, and these aren't all of them. I think there are only 25 here. They look as different as their programs. And so some of them are based on the level of proficiency, which is what Ying was just starting to talk about. Different levels, usually based on the ACTFL scale, but there are some states where it's based on seat time or a grade point average. Most states require an externally validated test, but some states allow for a test that's created by the district or the teachers. And there are a variety of tests that are used. So each state has different expectations. This again talks a little bit about what Ying was referring to about levels. And so most states, and the global seal as well, use the ACTFL scale, but they are all very different. And there are different levels by different states, but you will also notice that there are some state abbreviations where there is a number after the state. That means that state has more than one level. So there's more, maybe they have a bronze or a silver and gold or a silver and gold, and different criteria for each level. You'll notice that the levels for the global seal are on top. We have 3 different levels. And there are 2 states where they do use category awards. And they did that for, as what you were referring to, for the fairness of how difficult it takes to get to certain levels. There is some leveling of that playing field with College Board AP testing, because the AP test is not at the same level of ACTFL scale for the character-based languages as it is for the easier sort of European languages. So that sort of makes a more level playing field for the AP test score. However, most of the states do use sort of the ACTFL scale, and the reason why is because they're trying to create an understanding for the future. So instead of just granting recognition for the student and the time that they've invested in their learning, they're trying to help the future understand what it is that the person can do. So if you have a state seal, from example, the state of Illinois, that it should stand for the same level of skill no matter what your language. So the question is it valuable as an award? Then it wouldn't matter what the level is for the language. But if it's valuable for someone to understand what does the seal of biliteracy mean from this place or this state or the global seal for the future, then it should mean the same thing and it wouldn't matter the language. Otherwise, it would begin to confuse an employer or a college. Well, we don't know. Well, which language? I don't know. And then it loses its value. And so these were difficult decisions to make, and they do make it difficult for some students. And that's one of the reasons why the global seal has these different levels, so that a student has an opportunity to be able to get something earlier, not necessarily later. But you'll see that it's very different. So if someone is in North Carolina where they have an intermediate low, and then someone else is in my state of Illinois where it's intermediate high, and then they go to a different state to college and they both have a seal of biliteracy, those are very different students. But the college wouldn't think, oh, they must be the same, and put them in the same class because they have a seal of biliteracy. So it waters down the value of what does it mean. And that becomes a problem as they cross state lines with the state seals. You'll notice over on the left that there are 3 states, California, Colorado, and North Carolina, that also have options for the district can determine the evidence, which means that some districts might have a very high criteria and other districts have a very low criteria. And so in those states, that becomes even difficult for a state university to give something like college credit automatically, because they can't assume that every student has the same level of skill with their state seal. But they are different. But the impact of the seal of biliteracy is that if you can do a pathway of awards where you have more than one level, you provide the idea that students will think about it as, I don't have to just get to here and stop, that if I can continue, I can get another level and I can keep going with my learning. And I'm going to show you the sort of the value of a pathway set of awards, which is what we do with the global seal. Is we start with this functional fluency at that intermediate mid-level, and then we go to a working fluency, and we even have a professional fluency, which is what a lot of our teachers get. So the certificate will name the students 2 languages, the school or their organization, and it has a serial number, and that's important because it's going to help them in the future with a work opportunity, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So why would a school want to adopt a seal of biliteracy? And I show you some different specific reasons of why that's helpful. First of all, that students believe that it's useful. So I participated with 2 other researchers, and we published in the Foreign Language Annals this article about the seal of biliteracy and the impact of what students believed about its value. And about 80% of students believed it would help them with future employment. And these were students who were taking a language and students who were not taking a language. They all were asked, if you had a seal of biliteracy, do you think it would be beneficial? They also thought it would be beneficial to get college credit. What was at the very bottom of the list, although it still scored high, was better grades. So they did not see it as a school value. They saw it more as a future value. And we see students taking language longer and paying more attention and working harder in their language class in a school that has a seal of biliteracy program than in one that doesn't. Another reason why students might want to take a seal of biliteracy is because there are some college credit options. There are 5 states that automatically will provide some college credit for students in their state universities and even some of their private schools. And I've listed those here. If a student earns a global seal of biliteracy, they can earn transferable college credit from Southern New Hampshire University and take it to any school they want to wherever they want to go. And so on our website, we've created this little college credit counter of how many college credit hours potentially, if students have taken advantage of the program, they may have earned, which is a lot so far. So that's another opportunity for a student with a global seal of biliteracy. But there are many other benefits, and these are just a few of some of our global seal of biliteracy recipients. So on the left, Annabella, who got a working fluency, which is the advanced low level in Spanish, and she has functional fluency in Chinese, so our trilingual student. She used her global seal. She was waitlisted at Cornell University. When she sent them her global seal information, she not only was taken off the wait list, but they gave her early admission to Cornell, where she's studying biology. The next 2 girls are from Seattle, and they're in a heritage community program studying Bulgarian. Their parents immigrated from Bulgaria. And so they actually not only tested on Bulgarian that they've been learning on the weekends on Sunday afternoons, but they're also getting transferable college credit in Bulgarian to take to their college where they're going as freshmen this next fall. Georgia got her working fluency in Japanese, and she's using it to get 2 years of college credit as well as some advanced placement from University of Washington. And then on the right is Austin, who got functional fluency in Spanish, that's the intermediate mid-level, and when he called his university, they gave him a scholarship of almost $4,000 for his intermediate mid-level at Michigan State University. So we see students using a piece of paper, literally, about a test score to articulate their language skill in ways that really are beneficial and exciting to them. And that's really what it is. It's about what happens in the workplace, which is why we've equated the global seal levels with different levels of activities that are in the workplace, from the entry level of work, intermediate mid, to what a K-12 language teacher must certify at advanced low. And this is where a lot of our students are actually ending up. They're able to walk into a classroom, and if I have a piece of paper that says I have enough skill to actually be certified as a language teacher and I'm only a high school kid, that's pretty powerful. And so, and then all the way up to our professional fluency level. And so we see that in the job market. This is from the Ipsos study that ACTFL sponsored last summer, that employers here, even in the United States, are asking for language needs. And Chinese, 34% of employers said they will be needing or do already need Chinese employees. That's 1/3. So our students do have opportunities in the market. And if they have a piece of paper, a certificate, or a credential that someone else doesn't have, that will give them the advantage. And so this is what we show our students that they can do with it. And I mentioned earlier about that serial number. And that's what's important with the global seal of biliteracy, is we ask them they can actually put it on a resume as a certificate or credential. Whereas if you have typically a state seal of biliteracy is more like a high school award certificate, and it goes under like honors and awards and scholar, that kind of thing. This is actually a skill that's been tested and certified. And so it becomes more powerful than just an award. They can frame it, but we can also transcript it and send the information to a college or employer. And the global seal, this is because of that serial number, it actually goes in on LinkedIn profiles. And this is an example of that young lady, Annabella, that had that double seal of biliteracy in Chinese and Spanish. And this is her LinkedIn profile where she entered those in. How many schools a lot of schools will do both. So if you're in a state and you don't know if your state has a seal of biliteracy and you want to learn more, this is where the state seal piece is at. You'll see that on the left, you can click on at theglobalseal.com. We have a page where all of the state information is at. So you click on the map and you find your state. It'll give you some brief information. And there's a website link, which I've circled here, that will take you right to your state government's website. So you can find your own state government information about your own state seal. And there's also information there on our website, of course, about the global seal. So if you want to find out more, I imagine this will be archived. You'll be able to come out and find this page. For either the state or the global seal, there's usually a test involved. These are the common tests for Chinese. And you have a different test, but depending on the state and its required level, a different score might be required. And so if you're looking at those state websites or the global site, you're going to look for the chart where they're going to list the tests that they accept and the scores that are required. This is an example from the Global Seals page about its qualifying tests and scores. And you'll notice that there's a number of options. So there's something that fits almost everyone. And usually these are tests that might already be given in your school. You may already have scores that could qualify for your own state or the global seal. The goal then is to use that power of the benchmark test, which is the most important thing about what I want to share with you tonight. But this is where that sort of magic about the state seal and what it does for students is the power of leveling up. When we found in the research that when a school that has seal of biliteracy starts to test early, they change everything. Because what happens is if you wait till the senior year to test, it becomes a pass-fail. They either get it or they don't. And it's too bad when they don't. But if you test earlier, they'll find out where their weak areas are. And this is what begins to happen. When they take a qualifying test, and you'll see that these are the tests, for example, for the global seal, our most popular test is the stamp test with about more than half of our tests. And our next most popular test is the AP test. For the state seals, the most popular test is the AP test. But in 2 years, most of the schools that adopt a seal find within 2 years that their advanced placement, their higher upper level enrollment numbers double. So retention goes up because students decide they're not taking 2 years of a language to get into college. They're taking 4 years of a language to get a seal of biliteracy. So that changes everything. The second thing we find out is that you can begin to gamify language learning, especially if you give a 4-skill test earlier so that they know if they're on track and benchmark to get their state seal or the global seal or both. You'll notice on the left I have an Apple test score and I have a test score. What's different about these scores is that they show the skill in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And students very rarely have the exact same level of skill in all 4 areas. They have strengths and weaknesses. And usually their weakest area is usually 2 sub-levels below their strength. So for example, when I finally get to my in my weakest area, I finally get to the lowest award level, So if I need to get to intermediate mid for a functional fluency, and I finally get there in my lowest, weakest area, I am probably already at the next award level in my strength. And so students don't see themselves at the weak area. They see themselves at the next award level in one area and almost there in two more, and they just have one weak area to keep on. And they begin to, and that starts to gamify the idea of leveling up. And so it's so exciting to see students asking, well, what's my low score, because I can't wait to get. And this is what we saw with Albuquerque Public Schools, where they have a low state seal level, and they're where they gave out 286 steals, but all at the low level. And the students were recognized at a level lower than where they really were. And so they began doing benchmark testing, and they're using global seal. And they found that in 1 year, 11% went from intermediate mid functional fluency all the way up to working fluency, with the idea of leveling up. The kids were so excited. So the idea that I want to suggest is that when you're with your instruction, you want to focus on the idea of helping students level up in different categories, in different skill areas. And depending, if you have a standard speaker, someone who's not a heritage learner, the area where they're going to, most struggle will be probably in speaking. That's usually the hardest part. It may be also in writing with the character pieces, but heritage learners do well in speaking, but might not do so well in writing. And so those are the pieces that you have to begin to look at. And when you separate them out, sometimes they think, well, I'm really good, I know all of that. But when you separate out the skills, they find out, well, maybe that's my one weak area. But if I'm taking a test, then all of a sudden, my one weak area disqualified me from the big award. So we want to think about that. This is a great tool to help teachers learn about those pieces. It's from Avant Assessment called Advance, and it's an online training module to help teachers learn how these tests are scored so they can do better. Usually what we refer to as text type, that's usually the weakest area for students, is to help them to do better with that sort of spreading it out. And that idea of helping them get to the next level is usually the most complicated part. And that's where you want to target where they are, but kind of give them room to stretch, because we always have a mixed group of students in our classrooms. I mentioned just briefly about the heritage students, but usually the most important thing is that we want to test and help them go. They can be tested and certified earlier if you use global seal. Sometimes as early as, we see some as early as 6th grade. And that's okay, because you can, with the global seal, you can give them functional fluency, but they have more to go. Then they can get to working fluency. And they can still get a state seal. And then imagine that when they apply to college and they have 3 language awards on their college applications. How exciting that would be. And the other reason is that if you're a heritage student, even if your high school doesn't have a class in Chinese, you can still get an award and still get a seal. And so and again, we mentioned earlier, sometimes the challenges is that those areas aren't always tested in every school. So what should teachers do? You want to be informed. You want to we found out in our research that that was the #1 thing that students complained about. They didn't know about the state seal programs. They didn't know that they could get college credit. They didn't know that there was that they were going to have to take a test. And if they had known, they would have worked harder in class and paid more attention. Recognition and ceremonies. When you recognize these students, and we would in our high school, we would give giant checks in the amount of the college. This is a great advocacy tool to present a check in the value of their advanced placement at their colleges. And so you'd see $20,000, $30,000 checks coming across the stage, and the administrators said, wow, that's more than they're getting in their other classes. This language program is pretty valuable to our students. And parents are so proud, especially since they've never really sometimes heard the students use the languages that they're learning. So I have a little rule. I always say, celebrate what you want to duplicate. So if you celebrate things, then other people will want to jump on that exciting bandwagon and participate as well. So a good program needs great promotion. You need to have something about your seal on your website. You want to have posters and announcements about when is testing, especially if you have heritage students in your schools that may not be in a language classroom this year. You want to be able to let the community and the press know about it. Parents should be aware of all of the opportunities for college and advanced placement and scholarships that students could have, and of course with social media. With the Global Seal, we even provide you a badge with information to go on a school website and posters. So there's lots of things available to you, and I think we're here to our questions. So I'm back to you, Ying.
Thank you so much, Linda. Wow, so much information. Thank you for sharing all these, very helpful information with us. We do have a couple of questions here. And the first question is this. If a student reaches intermediate high in writing, reading, and speaking, but not listening, does he or she need to take the 4 skills test again, or what will happen?
Usually that's the beauty of doing a benchmark test all along the way, whether it's once a year or every other year, so that the student knows that they maybe have a weak skill in advance. But it depends on a little bit on the state. So if it's a state seal in Ohio, for example, they only need it in 3 out of 4, but that's unusual, very unusual. In most states, it's all 4 skills have to be at the baseline. But for example, most of the testing options, the 2 that are most common are the apple or the stamp, and both of those can be broken up, and the student could retake a portion. Unless there's a real error in the test, taking it 2 weeks later is not going to make a difference. It's usually, but you want to do some extra listening, provide that student will need more input, and probably from different speakers. Usually that's the main problem with listening is they've only heard their teacher's voice oftentimes, and they haven't heard a variety of speakers, which they will hear on an assessment test. They'll hear different voices, so that's important. And also that they don't hear just male or female voices, they hear a mix of voices.
I see. Thank you.
Regions.
Yeah, very good suggestion. Thank you, Linda. And another question is this, say, because I think the proficiency level, the benchmark is, the same for all languages. So, some teachers here are worried that maybe students will choose comparatively easier languages instead of, maybe Asian languages, they choose, some Roman languages. So what's your take on that, please?
I actually have not seen that. I've seen students choose languages because they are curious and interested in the languages that they choose. There's something about the culture or the people or the connection. In the case of Chinese, the students who choose it are often focused maybe on business or art, history sometimes is something that's just captured their imagination, or they just want the challenge. And I've really not seen that deter a student from taking a language that they really care about. And if you have motivation for the language, that works as much as whether or not someone else perceives it as being hard or easy.
Thank you. And how about elementary students? If they are in a Mandarin immersion program, can they apply?
We have several programs that are immersion type programs or dual language programs, heritage programs, where we have seen a few fifth graders and many sixth graders that are reaching our intermediate mid-level of testing for our functional fluency. The most difficult for those students, writing is the biggest challenge, and it's not usually a language problem. It's usually the cognitive, organizational level of writing at that age level. That's usually their challenge. Oftentimes their listening and their speaking skills are already well into sort of that intermediate high range, actually. So I would encourage them to begin to start benchmark testing at those levels and participate. We have a number of schools that use 8th grade capstone global seal as sort of a goal, and then at the high school level, then they'll want to do the working fluency. About 20% of our awards are going to college students. A number of universities use the Global Seal for their college students, so they can continue to keep working toward professional and have ongoing language. So that's another opportunity that the state they could still get, but they'd already have earned it a long time prior.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely, because you know, kids get excited when there's something to be won.
Absolutely. And Linda, you mentioned Apple and STEM are the two major, testing programs, for seal of biliteracy. If we go to Apple website or STEM website, can we see some sample test questions?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I showed that that link on the Global Seal. If we have links to those test sites, you can go to those sites directly. But if you don't remember which ones are the names, the Global Seal has a test page, and we have links to everybody's sites and describe what the test looks like. But on each of those test sites, they have sample tests that you can take. Most of the sample tests are, just different questions. You don't see the whole test, but you can take a sample test and see what it looks like for the different skills. And both of those tests, depending upon how many tests are given, are about $20 tests.
Thank you, Linda. And also, I think you mentioned earlier that on your website, there's a way we can find out what level each state offers, right?
Yeah.
Would you mind maybe showing us? Can you, open your, yeah. Well, Linda is, getting to the website. I just want to say thank you to all the participants online right now. We have 100 plus the 老师们, in the session. And just for class very first webinar started on March 15th, and today is May 15th. So this is our 2 months anniversary. And in the past 2 months, we have done 32 sessions, webinars, including 急救包 and 热点谈. So we want to really thank all our members and also class board and our teacher friends. Thank you for the support. We work together, and of course, we lead with Chinese language, and together we stay strong. Linda provides us with a alternative way to recognize our students' achievement, right? Besides AP testing, now we also have seal of biliteracy. It's extremely important for, some Chinese programs don't have AP, level classes yet. So, but definitely, I think we can encourage our students to take the seal of biliteracy.
All right, I'm on the webpage, and I think the nice thing about functional fluency is you don't necessarily, if you begin to do maybe in the second or third year the benchmark, you might find that you don't have, they might qualify before AP. All right, so this is our home page. And over under this tab that says Learn More, you'll see the qualified test page where it lists tests and the language page. So I could click here and this is that test chart. Each one of these will link. So for example, if I click the top one, then it will link and tell me about the test and where the states that have it for their state seal, list the languages, but it also has a link, and each one does the same thing, to the actual test company where you could try the sample test. Under resources, down at the bottom, state seal. And here's that yellow map. So if I click California, then I get a little information overview about California. If I scroll further, I will see the tests that are accepted in California. If I scroll further, I actually see the bill from the California legislation, all of the bill I want to see. But if I click and I still need more information, I click the website link, and this will take me to the California page. And this will work for each of the states that have a state seal. So we've done that. We provide that as a sort of a resource. Other resources that are here, trying to manage, and here we go. My tabs are here behind. We have some advocacy resources. So if you want to share about the Seal of Biliteracy or learn more about that and research for the Seal of Biliteracy, we have some media, some research pieces that are available to you, also for heritage learners. There's promotional research. These are posters are available, flyers you can print out. These are examples of what the certificates look like. If you're trying to promote it for students or parents, you might find the language credentials and careers page where we talk about pay differentials available, where they make more money. And there's articles here for graduates and different universities. So we've tried to create some, and we even have for students that have that different ones. So here's one from Middlebury. This is one of our students from Mexico, Heritage School in California, the Japanese. So a lot of our students share their pictures. So there's different ways that we can interact and support. So, but again, if there's anything we can, I guess I could show you. These are I mentioned the optional. Everything is free. Our certificates and a program is free, but we do have some optional medals. This helps offset the cost of the certificates, which we do provide at no charge. But so anyway, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I think, can we take 2 more questions? Yeah, and next question is from California. And I will just read it to you. Great presentation, 谢谢. I would love to offer proficiency tests to my students every year, but that is not something my school can pay for. Do you have suggestions for schools with fewer resources?
We have, for public schools, that's oftentimes something they use for title. They can use title funding for that, because for the Title IV funding, which is the full and fair, complete, Education Act, so there's some title monies that may be available. If it's a heritage or underserved neighborhoods, Title I funding. We have schools that use grant writing to help support language testing. So that's another area. In a dual language, it's actually, there's Title III fundings that could be used. We also see with the benchmark testing in the high school, sometimes that's wrapped into the fees or the support for students that are in like the heritage or the language honor societies as a part of that portion, and they raise money that way. That helps pay for their testing. So that's another option. Most of the lower cost testing can be anywhere around $15 to $20, $25, depending on sometimes on the volume purchasing. So over the course of the year, if that can provide a scholarship of $4,000, it's a good investment that sometimes students or parents or administrators are willing to support, especially with the advanced placement for the college. So that's something that that you want to always present with the cost, is what the potential value could be.
Thank you, Linda. And would you mind just maybe wrapping up your presentation by maybe sharing with us again the benefits of getting seal of biliteracy? We know for sure it will help students for their college application, college credits. Besides that, can you name a few more benefits?
I think that the most important piece was it really helped parents and administrators realize the value of your program. Sometimes language is looked at as kind of an elective, and sometimes students they see it as just a credit they need to get into college. They need 2 years to get into a college program. And the Seal of Biliteracy connects their language to what they're going to do for the rest of their life. It connects it, it gives them a value and a job skill. So when you say, we're gonna in this class, we're going to learn something that you're going to be putting on your job resume every time you apply for your job the rest of your life, it becomes a different conversation, and they have a different level of investment of getting really good at what they do. And so in the classroom instruction, I always connect what we're doing with the real world. So when we're if we're talking about whatever that classroom topic is, if it's about the home, well, when would we use this? If I'm talking about furniture or plumbing, if I'm working with a family that's moving into my area as a realtor, and they're a Chinese family, there's different ways I might see my language being used, and students need to kind of connect that with the real world whenever you can. And so that value right now, just this whole pandemic issue, there has been such a call for language skills that are not available to healthcare workers, to public service workers, to social workers. I'm working on a call actually with the state of Kentucky on Monday to use Global Seal as a sort of an apprenticeship program for the governor's office to train translators, as a screening program for translators for their high school seniors and their college seniors that are graduating. So there's an incredible need that this pandemic is opening up to the need for languages to serve communities that are a little bit puzzled by what's going on because information isn't getting to them. And so I think when you begin to talk about the value that your students have to the world, but then to your students, you communicate that their skill has meaningful value to people, but also to their pocketbooks later on in college savings and in work employability. And the Seal of Biliteracy can document that. I think then it becomes a program that anybody can join in on. And that's why, for example, in my state of Illinois, the legislators passed it unanimously, both Democrat and Republican. It was 100% vote. So they see it as value.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we all got educated on the Seal of Biliteracy. And I'm sure more teachers, Chinese teachers, will start to think about it and see how we can use this powerful tool in our, teaching and, helping our students to learn. And I think this is the time for us to wrap up. And Linda, would you mind go to the next slide? So 李娜老师 can share with the audience. You have an announcement?
Yeah, 谢谢金老师，谢谢艾琳老师 ，Thank you to Linda 艾琳老师。好，老师们，不知不觉我们今天已经是第32期节目了，在过去的2个月真的是不可思议。那学年即将结束，这也意味着急救包培训系列以及我们的热点谈系列就要落下帷幕。CLASS 团队呢特别感谢有您的大力支持以及全程陪伴，我们特别希望听到您的声音，请您点击右边的 Flip Gray 链接，跟全体中文老师分享您的急救包参与心得，感恩有您，期待分享。那同样呢，在下周的星期4以及星期6，我们会有2场分享会，老师们也请关注我们的这个报名链接。Linda, do you mind to move on to next? Yeah, next slide. Thank you. 有老师说，我以为一直都会持续。老师您放心，我们老师们先放个轻松的暑假好不好？秋季回来，我们接着有活动。暑假的时候，我们还会继续带着老师们一起复习，好吗？刚才提到了5月21号和5月23号2场的这个活动，也希望老师们积极报名参加网课培训分享会。每位老师都将有6分钟的时间分享您是如何将急救包的工具运用在自己的网课教学当中，期待老师们的参与。好，谢谢金老师，
谢谢 Linda， 谢谢各位老师，周末愉快。
老师们周末愉快。Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. And anybody that has questions can feel free to email me.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody. 老师们再见。